Welcome to this webinar. My name is Susanna Lorin. I am the Managing Director and Chair of the Funka Foundation, and this is the final conference of an Erasmus funded project called INTUX, and we are finally here. We do have live captions. If you use the CC button in Zoom, you can activate these, and we also have international sign provided. If you use the interpretation button, it's looking like a globe. You will have your international sign provided to you, and you can move that part of the video around, and you can make it larger or smaller as it fits your needs. So that is a very cool feature in Zoom these days. And we will have a packed program for 2 hours with the Q&A at the end. But please, if you do want to ask questions to the speakers, use the Q&A function, and we will make sure to respond to as many questions as we can by the end of this event. So the legislative requirements on accessibility is really increasing, and the need for competence in this area is immense across sectors and in the whole of EU. And we do have policies, legislation, standards, and technical specifications, of course, but all of that they're only kind of tools to make digital services accessible and usable for people with disabilities. Still, most universities do not train students in the topic, and we risk having generation after generation of web professionals who do not grasp the real user needs. And that is really the background of the INTUX project. We are going to have a little bit of an introduction about the project, and then we will present the deliverables. So first, the state of the art. How does it look here in this topic? And then we will have a small panel with end users from different parts of Europe. And then we will present the training material. That is one of the deliverables of the project. And we will have a short coffee break or tea break or water break or whatever you like. Then we will present the recommendations, and in that part, we haven't really finalized the recommendations yet because the project is going on until end of August. So we will also ask you to provide some insights and inputs, a little bit of validation in the recommendation part. And then we will have another panel discussion this time with labor market representatives so that we can see how the training in the universities kind of feeds into what is happening in the labor market and the workplace. And then we move into the Q&A part of the event. So very welcome, everyone. And I should also say that the chat is monitored for technical questions, and we have a team supporting us also with providing links in the chat. And we are recording this, so you will also be able to look at this recording after the project. But now I want to leave the floor to our coordinator, Eva Bruxle from Turiba University, who will tell us about the INTUX project. Please.
Hello, everybody from Riga, from Latvia. So next slide, please. My duty for today is to give you some short insights in our INTUX project. The INTUX project is Erasmus Plus Cooperation Partnership Project. And the full name of the project is Introducing Training on User Testing with People with Disabilities into UX Design and Related Higher Education Programs. This project officially starts in September 2022. And we are almost done, while the end of this project is the August, so we still have some months to finalize our results. The project have a web page, and you see the link on the screen, and the link also used to be in chat. And once you will scan the QR code, you will go straight to the project website, where you could find also some information, and also the project results already, some of them already published in project website. We strongly believe in importance of inclusive higher education system, and we strongly believe in importance of develop the competences of accessibility and inclusion. Please, next one. The one back, please. One slide back. Yeah, thank you. Our project is about how to educate, how to teach students regarding UX design, more inclusive, accessible testing process. So as you see, the main goal of INTUX project is to educate university students studying UX design and related programs on how to increase accessibility of the end results by conducting testing with the people with the disabilities. We used to speak a lot about the accessibility of physical environment, but in nowadays, once many things we do virtually in online, apply for activities, buy the tickets, yeah, do a lot of stuff. So more important is to speak and to have really accessible digital environment. And we try to find the way how to teach our future professionals to create such an environment. Please, next one. To be able to achieve a goal and to get the results that could be really applicable and really implement in universities, the most important part is to have good partners. And I assume we are good partners. And the partners represent 4 countries: Latvia, Slovenia, Spain, and Sweden. And in our partnership, there is 3 universities. The Turku University as a leading partner, and we are the business university, and we also teach IT students. In the partnership, there is also University of Maribor from Slovenia and Universidad Política de Madrid from Spain. So the main role of the universities is always connected by research, by developing of the results, and also testing the results with the university students and teachers. The next one, please. In our partnership, we have also three organizations that an organization to work with the people with disabilities. And then there is a Latvian umbrella organization for disabled person organizations, Sustento. We have on board also the National Council of Disability Organization of Slovenia. And we also have as a partner Autismo Sevilla, Spanish non-profit organization. Those partners are really involved in expertise, in result testing, and was really active in testing our results and working in our seminars and in our workshops. Next slide, please. And we have also partners that are big experts in terms of inclusion accessibility. And we have Funda Foundation that hosts today our event. And in the beginning of the project, the Funka also contributes in the project. Without a good partnership, yeah, as I already mentioned, it's really hard to achieve the results. Next slide, please. As I already mentioned it, the main goal is to create the materials for teaching the next professionals regarding the accessibility and more inclusive, accessible user testing. So, and as a result of our project, we will come up with the recommendation for higher education institutions. But to be able, to develop them, first of all, we provide the big research and research in terms of identification of the best experience in accordance with inclusive, accessible testing. And in the end, we create the literature review report, and you could read, you could get this report also in our web page. And there is a QR code, and in chat you could find also the link. Besides of literature review, we also collect the best practices of inclusive user testing. And the result of our research also is in the best overview of the best practice. And this particular result also already published in our web page, and through the QR code, or by using the link in chat, you could also go through our web page. Next slide, please. So the next steps we provide in our project is we try to find the user needs, and in terms of that, there was a big survey, also provided by Sustento, and that we get good results, and we discovered that the problems and the reality. And there is also one more report, and the report also you could get in our webpage. Please scan the code or open the link you could find in the chat. Besides of the research part, literature review and best practice analyze, and also the survey results, there was also the workshops, validation and co-creation workshops, in which we test the results we get through our research, with the target audience, with involving people with disabilities. And then we also create a report, and report is available in INTUX project website. Please scan the code or use the link in chat. So afterwards, we was able to create the learning framework after the collecting all information, testing, and discussing the problem issue in co-working or co-creation workshops. We come up with a learning framework, and learning framework report also you could find in INTUX project website. And then you see scan the QR code or open the link that you could find in the chat. Please, the next one. One back. Thank you. So, and afterwards, we was able to come up with something that we think it will be really useful for the teachers, for the lecturers who work with the students in actually in different programs, the IT and communication. So, and on the base of the previous research, we create the training course or training materials. The materials also is published. If you will scan the code or if you will open the link in chat, you will find the training materials where you could get information regarding what is important, what you take in account once you will work with the students who try to learn regarding the UX design and user experience testing. We also developed the handbook for the trainers, that give the tips for teachers who was working with the students and who was also using the training materials. All those materials is tested in workshop, tested with the students, and also evaluated by educators and by experts. So both materials, training materials and handbook for trainers, already published in INTUX project website. If you will scan the codes or the QR codes, or you will open the links in our chat, you will be able to find and to download the materials from our website. And the next one activity or the project result is recommendation, which we are still developing, and they will publish till the end of August, also in our project website. Please, next one. To sum up, I would like to speak shortly about the lesson learned. While this project was really challenging, as I already mentioned, the Turku University is a business university. We have the IT programs, and we train the future IT specialists. But of course, our expertise and knowledge in this particular field was not so big as it is for Funca, or as it maybe is for the Spanish university, and that's why this was really challenging. And also for our partner institutions from Latvia, Slovenia, and Spanish, which work with the people with disabilities. Also, some questions regarding the user experience, I assume, was really challenging. So, but our lesson learned: digital accessibility for people with disabilities is our nowadays actuality. While, as already mentioned, plenty of things we are realized through online, through websites. Evaluating the accessibility of websites and application, that's a reality for many companies. Are you sure that your particular website or your particular application is really accessible for people with disabilities? Okay. Creating knowledge about accessibility and inclusive environment, and that's the necessity for nowadays. I would like to assume that those are the lesson learned for our university, for our partners. Yeah. So please open our website, please check our materials. And today there will be my colleagues that will speak more deeply about particular results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yeva. And now we move on to Spain, and Loic Martinez Norman, who is a professor and doctor, I think, doctor professor. It's almost like in Germany, in the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. And Loic will tell us about the state of the art. So the current situation based on the literature review, best practices, and partner experience in the project.
Thank you, Susana. So hello from Spain to everyone. Thank you for attending the event. So as Susana has said, I will go through the research stages that we had at the beginning of the project: data to review, research on good practices, and the survey to persons with disabilities. With that, we got a set of best practices that we tested in workshops, and we finally got a revised listing of best practices that have been incorporated in the learning framework. Next, please. So our first stage was to do a literature review. We did a research in the existing literature of formal research papers that talked about user testing, including people with disabilities. We did that through a systematic review process. Next, please. So after the first search in several databases, we got more than 1,000 papers. We removed some duplicates. We still were above 1,000 papers, and we applied some inclusion/exclusion criteria, such as the date of the publication. So we got recent papers, and that make us reduce the list to only 133. After that, we applied some quality assessment criteria, and the final list of papers we did full reading and data extractions was 84. Next, please. With that, we identified relevant information, and we have to say that most of the papers were related to either people who were blind or people with low vision, and we had few papers on other disabilities. Next, please. And in relation with the state of usability testing, which was the main goal of this project, we found out that all stages were covered, but most papers talked about especially the text, how to do the test execution, how to get people with disabilities, test recruitment, and how to get feedback from the users with disabilities after testing a product, which is a post-test questionnaires. Next, please. Second research activity was to go through real practice by companies and entities or who are doing usability testing, including people with disabilities. So we did a web search trying to get practical advice on support materials. We found very interesting sources, as you can see on the slide: Bentley University, Easy Reading Project, FONCA, IBM, Nissan Norma Group, People Nerds, Tetralogical, UK Government, UI Access, and Experienced. Next, please. Most of the information we found was in the form of guidance material, guidelines, what to do, how to do things. We also found some other interesting results that were either the results of research projects or some reports or white papers. Next, please. With respect to the stages of usability testing, most of the information we got from this research activity was for information about what to do before the usability testing, like how to recruit users with disabilities, how to prepare for them, and activities to be done during the usability testing. There was only one source that talked a bit about what to do after the usability testing session happened. Next, please. In addition to these two desktop research, we did a survey to gather information from people with disabilities that could or could not have been involved in usability testing. We received a total number of 226 replies. Next, please. The main findings of that survey is that 39%, that's less half of the participants in the survey, know what is user testing, and an additional 17% were not sure whether they knew or not the terminology of user testing. 41% have already participated in user testing, and 78% of them were allowed to use their own assistive technology. 22% of these participants did not receive any compensation from their work in user testing, and 44% of them never received any feedback after the user testing session finished. And the final finding is that 46% of the people responding would like to participate in future user testing activities. Next, please. Thank you. With that, we got a total number of 15 best practices, like recommendations to take into account when we are preparing and organizing usability testing sessions that include people with disabilities. 5 of these best practices are for preparation before doing the test, like prepare a good explanation of what the user testing goals are going to be, collect consent forms from the participants, prepare for training for the participants before doing the real usability testing, make sure that the instructions are clear, especially for trying to have the most clear language as possible, and applying accessibility standard for any documentation that is distributed to the participants. Next, please. During the usability testing session, we have 8 best practices. One could be let users do their testing remotely from home, or allow them to come with a personal assistant, an escort. Let the participants use their own personal assistive products. Let them repeat the task more than once, which is not normally done in usability testing, but is interesting in the case of some types of disabilities. Make sure that people have enough time, normally more than usually expected. Allow the participants to take breaks. Then enable experts in the field of accessibility to supervise the process, and make sure that the surroundings or the facilities for the usability testing are comfortable and accessible. Next. And 2 best practices for after finishing the test. First one is to compensate the users with disabilities for their time and effort. And the second one is to provide them some support after testing. So for instance, helping them to get out of the building was one of the major examples there. Thank you. Next, please. We have tested these best practices we did 3 co-design workshops, one per country, main country of the universities. We organized that in the universities. So we had 2 face-to-face sessions in Latvia and Slovenia, and 1 online-only session in Spain. Next, please. We had in total 51 participants from different groups, 17 persons with disabilities, 7 representatives of organizations of persons with disabilities, 11 university professors, 8 students, and 8 experts in usability and accessibility. From them, what we did was to welcome them, to explain each of the 15 best practices. After the best practice was presented, we had an open discussion and feedback, and then some questions, closed questions for them to give us feedback about the best practices. And then we ended the sessions with a wrap up. Next, please. The results of these 3 workshops were mainly to make a change in the order of the best practices. So some of them were found out to be more important than others. We modified some of the best practices, a couple of them. And then the most interesting aspect of the workshop was a new list of new best practices to take into account. Next, please. So for the changes next, we've got a lot of more best practices, especially in the first stage before, like preparation stage, like to be prepared for diversity of disabilities, to get the testers to be used to how assistive products work, to check that the product that to be tested is compatible with assistive products, to make sure that either the language and the attitude of anyone involved is correct and does not discriminate people with disabilities, to give participants the freedom they need to even leave the session if they need to try to involve people with disabilities when creating the tests, so as a co-creation process, to also, in addition to the consent forms from the participants, to make sure that the ethical committee of the entity is also consenting to the activity, and as a practical thing to make sure that the equipment and personnel are ensured. After, we add a new best practices to try to provide feedback after the session, so that the participants with disability got information about what we have learned in the usability testing process. Next, please. 2 best practices were modified in title and descriptions. The first one in before to provide clear instructions to perform the tasks, and then the one during the test to let persons with disabilities come with either caregiver or assistant that could support them normally in their daily lives, that could also be there in the session. And that's going to be all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Loic. And because Loic has such a busy schedule and thousands of students that he has to teach every day, so I will take the 2 questions that we have got for Loic specifically now, just before we move into the panel. So the first one we got was, I have a question, what kind of training are we talking about here? The point 1.3 in the first slide you showed of the best practice.
Okay, so the training is about trying to train the future users about what a usability testing session is about, what we expect from them. So that explaining to them that we're going to test a product, that we're going to give them some tasks to perform using the product, and that we expect to collect information about things that don't work in the product. In fact, we did that in our project, and you will see something afterwards in these empowerment sessions with people with disabilities. So that's the one. So it's having people knowing more about usability testing before they do the real usability testing.
Yeah, very good. And the second question is, could you please explain what supervision by professionals during the test mean?
Okay, so we expect that a high possibility of entities not being very aware of accessibility and disability issues when they do prepare the usability testing sessions. And in that case, it would be good to have people who do know about accessibility and disability to provide supervision of everything happening during this testing session, like making sure that the facilities are physically accessible, that the devices used have accessibility features turned on, and that the language used is clear enough for the expected people who are going to come if they have any cognitive issues or language difficulties. So this type of things, like providing support for the preparation and the performance of the usability testing.
Okay, thank you very much, Loic. And I
Thank you.
also wanted to comment that it's so interesting that in the research, in the desk research and best practices, we didn't find anything about feedback, because when we have done similar projects and researched this before, what the users always say is something about that they didn't receive feedback. And that's kind of a key message. And that is also what we got from the user validation workshops in this project. But it's fascinating that still that's not kind of not much found in the research. So that's a gap that I think we have really managed to detect and could possibly bridge with this. So thank you very much, Loic, for this. Very good. I think everyone is happy with the response to their questions as well. So thank you very much. And please do use the Q&A function, because it's much easier for me to see what you write if you use the same place. It's difficult when things are happening in two places. So now we are moving into our first little panel, and this is a very short panel about the end user perspective. So if we could please have Linda, Piluki, and Primoz open their cameras and join us again. Yes, here you are. Thank you. And I will stop sharing so people can see you better. So let me see what we have. We have in this project really focusing on understanding end user needs. So therefore the opinions of end users are of course key to the success of all activities that we have carried out. And Loic mentioned the validation workshops and so on. Of course, we cannot only talk to the universities or the students or the teachers, but we also need to talk to the people from the disabled persons organizations who are partners in the project. So we have two umbrella organizations and one organization representing a specific diagnosis. So with me here today, I have Linda Cerpa, who is the coordinator of Adult Learning Center at Sustentu, the Latvian umbrella organization for disabled persons organizations. And then we have Primoz Čeralić, who is the freelance assistant to the National Council of Disability Organizations of Slovenia, NCIOS. It's a very long name, and that is the umbrella organization for disabled persons organizations in Slovenia. And then we have also Pilar Abad Carrion, who is representing here Autismo Sevilla. So all three organizations are partners in this project and have been key to make sure that we are representing all the end user perspectives here. So I would like to ask you, all of you, before the INTUX project, what experience did you or your members have on user testing? Linda, if you can start, please.
Okay. For us, we almost had no experience at all, so we didn't know much about this. So we was very interested to jump in this project and learn new things. Only organizations who had some very little experience in user testing is organizations who are work with people with visual impairment. They were testing some products before and had participated in some user testings tests as well, but not very much. So we are new in this field.
Yeah. And Pilar, what about Autismo Sevilla? Did you have any experience from user testing before you entered the project?
No, in my experience, I have experience before. Actually it's new for me. No user testing was about and they were a no concept to me, but it's in the experience in the Madrid University is very good experience for me in the user testing, and I very fun in this experience because the specialist in this concept is very good treatment with my college. The experience is very flexible and it's very nice to meet new people in the university. It's very, very good for me.
Yeah, so I was participating in one of the workshops in Sevilla, and it was really the energy in the room was very high. So I could imagine that people really liked it. But Primož, your National Council of Disability Organizations in Slovenia, what about your members? Did they have any experience with user testing before, or was this new to them?
Yes, welcome from my side. Well, we have no experience with user testing. Although myself, I have been in the role of testing new software solution in my previous job, but I have not yet encountered user testing itself. And no major problems were detecting during the workshops. The reason may also be that the younger generation participate. And yet I can say that the knowledge that users have contributed to a better final solution, because the final solution includes the user experience and their needs.
Okay, thank you. During these workshops where user testing has been explained and also tested a little bit, so we already heard in Spain that it was positive, but what was the impression among your members and others who participated in Slovenia? Primož, if we continue with you, was it positive, or were they interested? What was the feel of the members?
The participants actively participate in the workshops, which made us very happy. The topic addressed by the INTUX project is topical, and everyone involved was aware of it. Since we include various forms of disabilities, at the end of the workshops, we gain a larger base of possible improvements, which certainly have a positive impact on the equal inclusion of people with disabilities, regardless the type and the form of disabilities.
And Linda, in Latvia, how was the impression from your members, the ones who didn't have the experience before? Were they interested, or?
The people who participate in the user testing workshops was very happy with workshops because we didn't have so much experience before. We already explained all the participants that that's something new what we are doing. And we find some issues, so we know where we need to grow and what we need to work on more. But basically, all the feedback was very positive from participants.
So they liked the workshop, but I'm more interested in did they like the concept of user testing? Do you think
that's what they like the most? Because the first workshop was we had some issues with technology and everything, and it was a bit of chaos. But everybody was very understanding, and people are very interested in this process as a process that they have. They are glad that hopefully the people with disabilities will be able to participate in that kind of user testing and explore new products and leave their own feedback about the products. So basically it means that they will be more included on all the new what's gonna create. When something new will be created, there will take the aspect of the people with different disabilities, so that product can be used by everyone.
Yeah, it should be self-evident, but still evident. So yeah, but that's very good to hear. So Pilar, would you give a recommendation to an organizations that would like to carry out user testing with people with disabilities? What are the most important things to think about? What do you think? Could you give us a tip?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. in my opinion, I think that important thing in that when in the testing is that user of people with diversity is that they given a specific guidelines, explain a simple and clear way the test to the done in so that the person does not get nervous and overwhelmed because they don't know how what to do in the in this, and the specialists have a good treatment and flexibility over time. And for me, in conclusion, is something it's very important to highlight about the remuneration because to which we are entitled for the value information we provide for the final product to be more accessible when launching in the market. In addition, and to make it visible in the social media networks to recognize by many people and very commented for the people.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, to also kind of communicate around that this product has been tested by people with disabilities. It's kind of a selling point as well. And it's and that's a very good point. Thank you. Primož, what would be your key messages or recommendations for organizations who would like to carry out user testing with people with disabilities?
Well, NCOs advocates for the position of equal treatment for different types of disabilities. Therefore, it is extremely important for organization that would like to conduct testing of users with disabilities to be aware of needs at the particular types of disabilities has beforehand. They acquire knowledge and comply with standards of accessibility of information and communication. Last but not least, our suggestion is that organization that wants to implement user testing should not be intimidated without people with disabilities and their need for accessibilities.
Very good. Thank you. And Linda, you get the last word here. What's the key message?
My message basically would be the same what we heard already. The clarity of information is very important. The environment is very important, and whoever is providing this user testing, they must know some basic stuff about the disabilities. If that's the person with any kind of disability, you should know something about this disability, about the needs, as Primož said before. So I can't say nothing new what we already heard. I really, really agree with all that.
Well, that's good. Then all from different parts of Europe and representing different disabilities all agree. I think that means that we have come to a very good conclusion. So, and it's interesting that none of you mentioned money because that's usually also kind of top 3 or top 5 is that compensation. And for me, being an accessibility expert, I think for us, it's really crucial that when we have people with disabilities doing user testing, they are the experts. And of course, they should be funded and kind of must have a fee, get some kind of compensation for being there because they are the experts and we pay other experts. So why shouldn't we pay people with disabilities? So that is, but it's interesting that your minds are more on the inclusiveness and the knowledge and kind of the disability etiquette, the language and things like that. So that's very nice. So thank you very much to the panel. We are moving on to the next part of this session, and I think now we have another doctor, Dr. Peter Kemen, who is an accessibility expert at the Funke Foundation, and he's based in Hungary. And I think you could actually share your own slides because you're taking over anyway, aren't you?
I'll take over after the break, if that's okay.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I would need you to give me permit for the video. It's apparently got disconnected before and it went away.
That is not good. So let's see if I can find you again. There you are. And now you should be able to be visible. And there you are. Take it away.
There am I. There I am. Okay, so thank you. I am Peter Kamen. I had a proper introduction from Susanna, thank you. And it's a very good position for me to talk about the training course now, because all the keywords were mentioned and more or less explained. So it's kind of summing it up. The idea of the project is to provide a training course and to test it. So this is one of the key deliverables. And so what Loic mentioned, there was a lot of research about best practices, organizing it, and there was another step is to creating a learning framework, which is to select the best practices that would be involved in the training course, and that would be then structured in a way. So the learning framework already created the structure that the training course then uses. This is a curriculum for university and teachers and web providers, and the curriculum provides the structure and the content for the course, and adds practical resources. Many of them are from the best practices we found, and also some of our own knowledge is added. And a very important part of this training course, the curriculum, is that it's flexibility. So it is created in a way, it's not a strict format, it's complete, but gives flexibility. So it can be used for online or face-to-face trainings. It can be tailored to the target audience, either if it's specific user needs or people with already having knowledge of some of the material. If it's guided or self-learning, it's or a mix of that, this curriculum is useful for any of these cases. It has a stepwise approach, so it is, as I said, it's complete from the beginning to the end. It has a set of logical steps that include how to prepare and carry out and close user testing. But if it's needed, then one or two modules can be separated and being taught in themselves as well. And also it's flexible for the duration. There's a trainer's handbook I will talk about shortly, and it provides an example for a 100-minute workshop short training and for a 10-unit, 10 lessons course. So it is the teacher can set it up the way they need. You have a link the same as before shared with the QR code for the training course, but we will also share these links afterwards if you don't want to look at these resources and rather listen to us. These links will be shared in an email after this event, a couple of days after. So what is the content? It's the structure is 5 modules. Foundational, which is about accessibility and user needs. So it's an introductory part. It's very important to understand for the students the concept of testing with user testing with users with disabilities. Then the second module is about how to set up the test panel and how to ensure that it's a diverse test panel. The third is about communication and etiquette. It was already mentioned, how to communicate with the test panel members. Then a special module, fourth module, is about assistive technology and what should be, well, what is assistive technology and what is the guidance that should be provided. And the last one is, as Loic mentioned, usually a bit neglected, how to close up, how to finish a user testing session. So this is the module, this is the structure of the knowledge. Also, each module has the same internal structure. It has the prerequisites, so what is the necessary knowledge to be able to do that module, what is the expected learning outcome, what the students should know after having that module, then a content description, some practical suggestions for exercises, how to assess the knowledge, and additional resources. So this structure is the same for each module. So let's go through the modules one by one. The first one is the foundational, as I mentioned. So it has a general introduction to accessibility. What is accessibility? Why is it important? Then it talks about how to involve users and why to involve users, why it is important to have a diverse set of testers. Then it explains what an accessible environment is, what should be paid attention. And it's not just focusing on the technical parts. It is about how to explain the aim of the test so everybody can easily understand that what is an accessible setup, both in the physical environment and for the material that the testers get and for the tested product or service. Then maybe how to involve caregivers and whether the testers use their own equipment or it's provided for them. So these all have their accessibility aspect, which should be considered in advance. And then with many modules, there's a part about how to be flexible, how to solve problems, how to be prepared for that, because adaptations will be necessary during user testing, and it's important to plan for them. So that's module 1. Let's go to module 2. It's how to set up a test panel and make sure it's diverse. So it talks about the diversity of user needs, and it's important to mention that it's not just the different groups of persons with disability have different user needs. Every person can have, even ones with the same disability, could have different user needs and usually have different ways of using and interacting the technology. So it's important to be able to pay attention to that, prepare to that, and to represent that diversity in the testing. Then it's about how to recruit users, how to find users, and how to recruit them. Both are very pivotal. Then how to prepare the material for the recruitment. An example is to make sure that it has a consent form and that it's understandable for everybody. And then again, additional support and guidance. And I would use this module to quickly describe the structure. So what does it mean? Prerequisite for example, in this module is that participants should have a basic understanding of UX design and user testing, understand the importance of correct recruitment. And so based on that, this module can be taught. This is a necessary previous knowledge. Then an example for an outcome, the students should be able to apply basic knowledge on how to recruit people with disabilities. I think it's good to provide an example for an exercise as well. For this, for example, working groups and research different organizations of persons with disabilities in your country for potential contacts regarding tests in the future. So it's a very practical approach. And then for the assessment methods, it can spread from written examination through discussions to simulation. So module 3 is
Peter, you have 1 minute for the rest.
Module 3 is about communication and etiquette.
Cannot just speak quicker, you'd need to.
Yeah, I'll sum it up. So we talked about the disability etiquette. So it's important how to address, to know how to address the test members. And the next one I talked about is assistive technology and guidance and support. Here it's important to mention that, please change the slide, module 4, yes, that the students should know about the different forms of assistive technology and what's the difference if it's the tester's own equipment or it's provided. And finally, module 5 is conclusion, feedback, and compensation. It's important to provide feedback to finalize, to provide feedback on the results of the testing, to finalize the meeting with questions and accepting questions from the users, and important always to provide compensation and in advance to actually discuss that. So this, just very shortly, this the creation of the training material went through a validation process. It included teachers, students, and end users with interviews and surveys, and it was tested in 3 universities, and we got feedback from the students, and then it was updated to based on those comments. And the very last one, there's also a handbook for trainers, which then helps the teachers to prepare for this training, because it's very important that they also have the necessary knowledge, and it provides some suggestions on how to involve students and how to integrate the course in the university curriculum. So that's basically about the training material and the additional handbook.
Thank you very much, Peter. There was a lot of information in a short time. Sorry for making you stressed, but we need to make sure that we have a little bit of a break also. I would like to ask you just to clarify this training material and the handbook, how can it be used by somebody? I mean, what is allowed? Can anyone just use it for their training? How open is this? What kind of license is it published under?
It is a very open license, because the idea is that it should be, so the teachers or universities should be able to flexibly shape it. So we went for the widest license possible. So it's free to use and free to adjust. Thank you.
And now it's time for a little break. I think we will have to shorten it slightly from what we had planned, but let's take 8 minutes according to my time at least. So we will meet again at 10 minutes past 2, and then you have to be fresh, because then Maya is going to talk about the recommendations, and she will also ask questions to you in the audience. So welcome back 10 minutes past 2 Central European time. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you had the chance to get a little bit to drink or eat, or at least move around a bit to wake up after the first session. And now we will move on to the recommendations, which is the last deliverable that we're presenting today, and is presented by Maja Pušnik, who is the assistant professor at the University of Maribor in Slovenia. And she will talk about the practical recommendations for uptake based on mapping and case studies. Please.
Okay, thank you. Hope you can hear me. Hello, everyone. As Susanna said, my name is Maja Pušnik. I come from University of Maribor, and today I will present practical recommendations for uptake based on mapping and customer studies. The presentation is based on activities which are or were conducted within INTUX project. And this presentation, as it's listed here under agenda, addresses the following subsections. What the market expects or needs based on a customer case study, what the academia, on the other hand, provides based on a mapping study, and practical recommendations to fill out this academia market gap based on previously mentioned studies. Next slide. So the customer case study included the following activities. First, identification of market expectations, which is based on feedback from representatives from industry as well as disabled persons organizations, discussing the hopes the market has, the opportunities it provides, and difficulties they encounter, as user testing is not something everyone is familiar with. And based on feedback from the market, the customer case study tries to establish a link between training and academia and existing demand. Within this activity, several job roles and necessary skills for them were also identified, always having in mind that the priority is accessible and inclusive user testing, which also involves people with disabilities. Next. As identified, there are numerous job roles available requiring user testing skills. Just to name a few, not all of them are listed here: usability analyst, quality assurance tester, user experience tester, accessibility tester, beta programmer manager, customer experience analyst, sustainability UX designer, behavioral UX analyst, and others. And these skills these jobs would require, the classical ones are technical skills for UX design and user testing methodologies, such as recruiting participants, target audience, then test planning, execution, data collection, analysis, and reporting. However, besides technical demands, there are also some soft skills necessary for user testing, such as empathy and user-centric mindset, which is often not a part of our formal education. And after looking, next slide, yes. After looking in the market needs, we also investigated what the academia provides on the other hand. Therefore, we conducted a mapping study trying to identify situation in academia. We investigated all partners together, 16 programs from Slovenia, Spain, and Latvia, including 10 courses from bachelor levels, 4 courses from master levels, and 2 courses on PhD level. And we investigated with the following questions: how much of UX is already included? Do the lecturers have proper knowledge? What skills, if any, are missing, and which are the weak areas as they perceive it? Next slide. And the preliminary mapping results, as this is not concluded yet, is the following outcomes. UX is partially included, however, user testing is less addressed. And the lecturers have general knowledge about UX, however, they lack experience with practical activities. Many of them weren't actually a part of real-life user testing experience. And the main skills in academia, the main missing skills were identified as said, practical experience in user testing with real participants, knowledge about how to adapt to diversity of user needs, or even understanding what they potentially need, knowledge about assistive technology, how to create an accessible environment, and avoiding making mistakes while creating a testing environment. And last but not least, soft skills are still missing. Okay, next slide. So based on the customer case study and the mapping study results, recommendations on how to include training on inclusive and accessible user testing in curricula is being prepared. So it's a work in progress, as the recommendations are based on activities that are still being analyzed. The final set of recommendation is in preparation and is due to come out in summer. So at this point, as we don't have all the answers yet, we would like to hear from you. So I will stop a little bit and ask you 3 questions that are very much connected to what we are researching, and your answers would definitely could be included in recommendations. Question number 1, and then I shut up for a minute. What do you think is the best way to integrate user testing with people with disabilities in existing courses? You can scan the barcode or put the code in slido.com, and please use this word cloud if you have any suggestions, experience, your knowledge. Okay. Awareness is key. Very good. This is definitely something, awareness about disabilities. I agree. This is something that for now, there's a lack of. Policies with a must at this stage invite disabled experts. Very good. Asking for volunteers. Connection to the learning objectives. Quality assurance. Less guesstimations. Okay. Everything is very valuable. Thank you. And it's so many. Okay, I can't read them anymore. Must be baked in at the start, not just an afterthought. Okay. Avoid superficial empathy. Okay. Feedback. Susanna mentioned we are lacking feedback. We must include feedback. Okay, this is great. Thank you. We have maybe a few seconds. Thank you so much for all of this. Just to give you what we thought, and you just write it down, great. We thought, based on the preliminary results, more workshops, guest speakers. Actually, we did thought about that on our own. Experts and advocates for people with disabilities. So someone else comes in the classroom, not only the lecturer. Then having as many as possible of practical projects and collaboration with local disability advocacy groups. But you have provided us so much more. Thank you. Great. Maybe we can, Peter, go to the next question. Okay, also very important, without giving you out what we thought about, what tools, either software or hardware, is necessary for this to be a success. So to introduce user testing into our curriculum, but also infrastructure. So you can write anything that you feel current universities or faculties are lacking. How could we just improve this part? So it's we have more success. Accessible buildings. Yeah, I agree. Not without troubles with this one. Okay, more education for teachers. Eye tracking, great. Any tool needed by participants, yes. Multiple screen readers, great. Tactile screens, eye tracking. Knowledge about assistive technologies, I completely agree. Okay. Okay, great. Knowledge about accessibility that is more than accessible buildings. Yes. No mouse Fridays. Okay. Great, thank you. Just keep writing and I will tell you what we thought. So assistive technologies, a few you already mentioned, screen readers, user testing platforms, and just kind of investing in infrastructure as in larger rooms, parking for students, and so on. Okay, thank you so much. You have been so helpful and so active. That is great. And Peter, I think, sent me a message. We have to cut the last question. So I guess we're cutting the last question. It's not that important. I think we got plenty from those two questions, and we will try to integrate your recommendations into our recommendations, which is a part of the INTUX project. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Maja, and thank you all the participants for your activities here. We will for sure document what was provided here in the word clouds and send it out also to the participants in some kind of accessible format afterwards. But that was, I think, some of the things comes several times, but many of the things also are new. So that was very, very helpful. And thank you, Maja, for this presentation as well. So now we will go on to the panel. We have, in order to make these courses in user testing with end users with disabilities to be kind of valuable for students, of course, it needs to be a demand for this knowledge in the market. And during the project, we have validated the deliverables also with an advisory board consisting of potential future employers of the students, as well as other universities. And the panel of today, we have to discuss the needs for specific competencies in this field. We have invited a panel consisting of experts from across the EU, and maybe I don't know if they can turn on their cameras or if I have to do something. Oh, yes, here they are magically. Fantastic. So welcome, everyone. We have Andreas Melin, who is a senior UX lead from the Swedish Health Information Authority called 1177 in Swedish. And he has a strong commitment to accessibility since many years and has also been part of the advisory board of the project. So welcome back, Andreas.
Thank you.
And we have John Hicks, who is the head of accessibility and digital inclusion for Atos in France. And Atos is a global supplier of anything IT, I guess, delivering to both public and private sectors. And they have a very strong accessibility team in many different parts of the world, maybe every country, I don't know, but many of them at least. But John is based in Paris and he's moving. So thank you extra much for being taking a couple of minutes out of your schedule to be with us today. It's really nice to have you here. So here we have the private sector ICT, generic ICT supplier perspective on accessibility, competence and needs here. And then we have Radek Pavlicek, who is a senior accessibility specialist at the Teresia Support Center for Students with Special Needs at the Masaryk University in the Czech Republic. And now I have to breathe, who has also been part of the advisory board and who is and whose team is also providing the captions for today. So thank you, Radek, for being here. And I would like to ask Andreas and John first, as kind of from the employer perspective, when you recruit UX designers and other web professionals, how important is it that they actually understand the diverse user needs and have experience in testing with people with disabilities? And is it easy to find these knowledges or experiences? John, you're shaking your head. Do you want to start?
I'm happy to begin or go second. Yes, no, I was shaking my head because I find it extremely difficult in France. I mean, I think it's still an underrepresented talent. Of course, it's very important. I mean, the first part of your question is kind of, I guess it's a trick question, you know. we know it's important, but you also put your finger on it when it really does come down to experience. So in the context of education, you know, you may have a module about accessibility or something. It's not enough. It needs to be part of the, well, whatever kind of system you're in. You know, in France, they do a lot of alternating. So people come to a job for a week and then they're in school for a week and to a job for a week. And it needs to be part of those kind of internships, hands-on, because what you find is, yeah, a lot of people have heard of WCAG, but it doesn't do enough. So my feeling is it's quite difficult. And when I find people who actually know it, it's because they've gone out of the way and done it themselves, mostly in the context of a job. So they had to do it for a job, they learned about it, and then they know it. So it would be just great to shift that back 3 or 4 years and put it into a curriculum for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to hear that you find that people actually have heard of WCAG, because I don't find that always the case either. So, but okay, so we have at least
not a lot, just a few. You know?
And Andreas, I know you do work a lot with interns and trying to also be out and teach young students and so on. But how important is it in the health agency that you work for, and how do you find them?
Well, since we work in the public domain, it's obviously very, very important that we can reach out to everyone within the Swedish society. And a lot of us have some sort of disability, even if it might be that I'm tired one morning or that it's pollen in the air one day and my eyes are clogged. So it's obviously important to have this knowledge. And regarding the question, if it's easy to find, I think when it comes to theory, I think a lot of our user experience courses in university includes accessibility and the knowledge. However, there is one part that is missing, and that's why I'm happy with INTUX adding it, and it's the practical part of doing the testing. It's my strong belief that people have heard of, yeah, you should do the testing, you should include it, you should test with real users, and just usability testing is a bit tricky. Especially when you're new in the field, you're a bit scared. And then you add the fact that if you read the list that comes within the INTUX program, it's a long list of things to think about before the testing. You might be quite scared. So I think adding the experience of actually doing real testing is super important. And a lot of companies aren't that big, and they might have 1 or 2 usability people. With accessibility, maybe 1 person. And if you're alone, and I believe there is a word that you might recognize, and it's procrastination. If you haven't done it before, you might procrastinate and never do the actual testing. So I think that's really important. And if it's done within the academic field, it's really good. So you already have the practical knowledge. I hope that answered the question somehow.
You kind of worked your way around.
Yeah.
but very interesting thoughts. So Radek, you have a slightly different position here, but your university is really focusing a lot on making sure that the students with disabilities get accessibility support. I mean, many universities do that, but I think you're kind of one of the leading ones when it comes to assistive technology and user needs. But what about the actual courses? Are your students trained about user needs and user testing with people with other disabilities, for example, or with disabilities at all?
Yes and no. We have several courses at Masaryk University which are focused on user needs and on universal design, accessibility, digital accessibility, and so on. But unfortunately, there is like no particular course focus on user testing with people with disabilities. So this is a gap that should be covered, but on the other hand, it doesn't mean that user testing with people with disabilities is not covered in Czechia. We do it as an integral part of our services, especially in the field of digital accessibility, and also there are some activities outside the university. For example, our colleagues from NGOs and even from the business sector started to focus on this field, and last year conducted a large study on the needs of people who are deaf of hard of hearing in terms of barriers or obstacles in the digital environment. So this is like probably the best answer I could provide now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm happy that you, both Andreas and John has a feeling that accessibility is kind of taught in universities and higher education. We have been involved in a couple of other projects, and I know other research initiatives as well, showing that across Europe, that's not really the case in the majority of cases. So I'm happy that you find these courses, but really, I think it's still true to say that the vast majority of universities do not have user needs for people with disabilities on the schedule. It may be a very short course, and then we have very specialized like master programs and so on, but kind of if you're just doing the average STEM whatever and gonna be a web professional in your life, then the chances are that you don't hear about it, or that it's very, very quickly mentioned among something else. So how do we change that? Because I just feel that we have generation after generation coming out not knowing this, and things kind of never change. So how do we shift left? How can we make sure that the students are better prepared, both for the legal requirements, but also for kind of usability in general? When I know this is a tricky question, but John, Atos, I'm sure you are, as a big player, you can influence universities, and you probably you probably work close to the higher education system and so on. What can we do to?
Well, we have obviously, yes, there's a lot of internship type things going on, and we're actually also involved in some work with further education. I say further education, it's often in substitute education. In a lot of the IT education now is being based on this peer-to-peer learning idea. The 42 school in Paris, which is now existing in California as well, is an example of this. And there are other things like it, where, yes, you try to get that into the curriculum. What I said before was not that I think it's universities. But it's like you said. I think it's a little module. You hear about it for maybe one day, and then you never apply it. So I would not put it as positively as that. One thing I think is important, and the way to really bring it in, is not to just be talking about accessibility, but we should be talking about holistic ideas in any domain. I'm a sort of very traditional cyberneticians, so cybernetics from the 50s and 60s, when it wasn't just about computers, it was really about looking at whole systems. And I see accessibility as being a very important part of, okay, you want to learn how to do UX, you want to learn how to write code, you want to create interfaces. It's part of looking outside the box. That was me that put that in the Slido, by the way. Looking outside the box and really realizing that, you know, we all have these little silos that we work in, and that the way to approach it is really to bring more systemic and holistic ethos into university education, which is contrary to the way things have gone in the last 20 years, right? Or 30 years even, where higher education is more and more directed towards vocation and you know, employment, as opposed to being something more well-rounded. So for me, it's really a question of kind of going back perhaps 1,000 years to the original idea of the university as a place where you learn stuff, and not just to make money, but because you want to learn about it. And then when you know about it, you can deploy it and apply it. So I know it sounds kind of like a pipe dream utopia, but that's where I'm coming from, really.
That's a very philosophical response to a question like that.
Well,
Very, very good. I'm still hoping that companies like Atos could show that there is money in the system as well, because I still think that's a stronger driver. But by all means, if we can make the universities like real universities again, no one would be more happy than me. So I'm all with you on that one. So, but let's talk to the. I see that you want to say something. But
I'll just come back and say there is money in it, of course, and the money in it is that if you do it poorly, it costs you a lot more to fix it later. Yep. So in terms of public spending, for example, the money is right there. It's in black and white. That if you don't do it now, in 2 years, you'll spend 10 times as much.
Yeah. So Radek, you are at the university. So what do you think? Can projects like INTUX and the training material we have provided, even if there are long lists and a lot of things that maybe scare people away, like Andreas said, but would this be one way of doing it, or should we approach it in another way? How do we change the universities?
I think that this is the right way, especially what was announced by Peter before the break, that it's published under a very, let's say, open license, so we can easily grab the rules and translate them, for example, into Czech and use them in Czechia here. So this is for us very, very useful. In general, you know that this is not like the first time when we don't reinvent the wheel, but we use something what was developed and is very let's say useful material, and we can use it. So this is one way. We also run a couple of other projects which bring accessibility and design for all into curricula at universities, and also we'd like to come up with some recommendations for others. And what's important for me is not to stay with this topic or at universities only, but we should also go there where the UX designers and where the community is. That, for example, we have a nice collaboration with the community of Czech designers through their association, which is called Association UX, and we are in touch and we help them with this topic, and time by time we deliver some presentation and help to raise awareness and so on. So this is what we do, not to be just like to close at university behind the doors and do our stuff, but we should go outside with this topic.
Yeah, just as all the accessibility experts should try to not always preach to the choir, but to talk in other kind of generic or mainstream conferences. So that's very hopeful for the Czech Republic. So Andreas, what do you think? How do we kind of change things so that the students that you get already know the thing? You don't need to train them all the time I know they love you for training them, but but if you would kind of make more progress, I guess, if you got students that had this competence from before.
Well, I think actually that right now you can see a big difference depending on where the students come from. It depends a lot on the teachers at each different school or university. And I think that's a problem, because you might, if you write an ad in the online or in LinkedIn, or that you want someone that has knowledge about accessibility testing, if someone checks the box, it might be very different depending on where they got their studies from. So to align the material, so more universities, more schools have similar, they have high quality material, it's vetted, it goes along with research being done. I think it will move from good learning being done only by the enthusiasts and being done more everywhere in all the schools, and it will help the teacher. So I think it's a lot about bringing the level up on the educational material, and this is something that I believe that INTUX will do. And I just want to clarify, when I say scare people away with the long extended lists of things you need to do before user testing, I think that you can easily feel intimidated by these kind of lists, and it was like, oh my God, that's a lot. I have a lot of other things to do. I start with them. But if you have tested it, if you have actually done it and tried it in a safe environment within your school as a student, where maybe even the people that comes and do the tests understand that, okay, this is a person that never done it before. We need to do it together. We need to help each other. I think this is really important, because you don't get that chance when it's live and when you do it you might work as a consultant, or you do it with a live audience. So I just wanted to clarify that. I think it's super important to do practical.
Yeah, it's true. Well. And that's also amazes me. It's kind of a recurring question, because I'm also involved in the IAAP, International Association of Accessibility Professionals, where you are all involved as well. But every now and then we get I think almost every week we get the question from people who want to become certified accessibility experts, who say, but I don't have any experience, but I can read this. Why do you require 3 to 5 years experience? I'm just an expert because I read WCAG and I can do this. And it's just, no, you cannot be an expert if you haven't done it. And that's not even user testing. It's kind of meeting the users. And it just baffles me. Why do you think you work with accessibility if you haven't even met the users? It's kind of crazy. So anyway, just a quick look into the future. Now we have kind of talked about problems and potentials, but I know you're all kind of committed to testing new gadgets and technology and looking for efficient solutions in everything you do. So what do you think the future will bring when it comes to increased accessibility? So we have upcoming legislation, we have new standards, we have a lot of tech innovation, everything goes really, really quick. So what is kind of the key, what are you looking forward to, Radek? What is going to change the world for inaccessibility here? Short, please.
Sure, yeah. So as for the legislation, at least what I can see here in Czechia, it's a very useful motivator for people to start with accessibility, not only, let's say, at the university level, but we see, let's say, big demand also from banks, from technology communication companies, e-shops. I would say that almost the whole Czechia is now like interested in making things accessible, since the European Accessibility Act will be here next year, and everybody should be prepared. So this is very good for me. And regarding AI, I don't think that it will solve everything, but for me, and based also on feedback of my colleagues who are blind or hard of hearing, deaf, whatever, so they see it, and I see it as well, as a nice companion, nice tool, which can be used in situations when, for example, the accessibility is not good enough. And if the web, for example, is not accessible enough, there are, for example, text alternative missing, and in that case, they can easily use some AI extensions for the screen readers to get the missing information. So this is what I see that might be a future, to see AI as a companion for people with disabilities, which can help them with these tasks.
Okay, so legislation is the driver, AI may help. John, what do you say?
Yeah, well, I was going to talk about AI, obviously. You know, more AI means more chatbots, and the chatbots have to be accessible themselves. So not only a companion for accessibility needs, but pressure on producers to make that accessible. I think that will happen more often now. One thing that's I'm finding a lot actually in terms of the business is that yeah, it's people like us. We need this awareness to be in a way that in a big project. So we would have a lot of sort of projects that are going for 3-7 years. You need to put it in the budget in the beginning, obviously. And it's an important step when we were talking about associations that do testing, and I have one in Paris at the moment. You know, you need to put it in the budget at the beginning, like, well, we're going to need X number of euros for these people, even if it's only in 2 years' time. And I think that's becoming more and more common. So I'm saying I think the future really relies on us at the moment. There's going to be a really important thing where let's forget about the technology advancing. We need to advance the ideas still. And I know we're all talking all here. How many people who presented slides today use the accessibility checker? That's another thing I'm always confronting with clients is that, well, what about the PDFs you send? You know, are you checking them? Because those can be done. That's really just a question of spending an extra half an hour on your document. Of course, that's where the problem is. On Friday afternoon at 6 o'clock, you don't want to do that. So my focus is on people. I'm still hoping we need to convince people to be more, but the machine stuff is obviously important. Yeah.
So it sounds like you and I will never retire. That's not good. So Andreas, you get the last word here. What do you see in the future? What are the solutions for us all?
Well, I think one super important thing, obviously, it's very easy to say AI. I think there is a lot of help in AI. I believe for us to be helped by AI, I think we need to have a little bit different mindset than what I meet every day. The mindset that I meet is like, okay, the AI translation, it wasn't perfect, or the here to do text to video wasn't perfect. What I would like everyone to ask themselves, okay, it wasn't perfect, but did it help anyone? Did anyone understand a little bit better than when they read the first text? If it helps, yeah, maybe it's not such a bad idea. And if we start using it, if we start learning from it, then we can make it better. But if we stop at testing and say, oh, it wasn't perfect, we will not be able to use it, we will not learn, we will not make it better, we will not start using it in the right environment. So we must be a little bit innovative and to try to use it and see where it works. And we might end up thinking, okay, that didn't work at all. Then we can remove it. We can try it. We can put beta label on it, or but be a little bit more open to new technology and see where does it help. But to know that, we also need to ask the users, did this help you? Did you like it? And that I think we maybe forget sometimes.
Yeah. So again, back to us people. so that's a nice ending. We are still needed. That's good. We cannot be replaced by AI. So I guess that is a good message for everyone. So thank you very much, my distinguished panelists. We do have questions from the audience. So if everyone could please come back on camera. I don't think we need the slides, Peter, because we want to have a Q&A session. And if my fellow partners in the project would like to go on camera as well, because I think everyone can support us with responding to the questions. The first question we got is, was this project born out of demand from universities? I'm asking this as I hope that this adoption will be wide and without needing too much persuasion. So the project really came from us, the project idea, and unfortunately that was not a demand from universities. It was a demand from society and from the accessibility experts, and that several previous research projects have shown that this gap exists, and also my fellow colleagues here from the accessibility world knows that we have this gap. So unfortunately, no, it wasn't born from demand, but I hope that we can create demand through this event and by spreading the word. So next question is, many thanks for this. How many hours of training would the full course involve? I think that's a question for Peter, maybe?
Yes. So as I mentioned, it can be a short 100-minute course. I think it's not really possible to do it under that, or it can be a course that goes through months. We have an example in the training handbook for a 10-unit course, but it can be even more. It depends on the audience, on the resources, and of course, what also influences it is if it's a full course or it's only 2 or 3 modules, because the audience knows the rest of it.
Okay, thank you. And Yeva, do you want to add something, because you had actually tested some of the training material with students and teachers and so on? Do you have any?
Yeah, I would like to add that this actually depends from the audience and from the situation. It could be always shorter or longer. You just need to adapt. Yeah, always adapt and feel the situation. That's my answer if you ask me. It's always about the give the right tools in the particular situation, and that's about the training as well.
Yeah. And then the eternal question is, how do I find the users? I would be happy to do user testing, but how do we get in contact with these users? So anyone? Andreas, how do you find users if you want to do user testing?
Well, it is what we do is we sometimes put forms on our websites, and we ask people to be part of panels. And due to GDPR and like storing data, it's a bit tricky to ask questions. But what we found and what we asked our law people at the office about what can we do, they said, well, you could ask people if they have special knowledge in using a screen reader, if they have special knowledge in using Braille, or so that we ask, do you have special knowledge in certain fields? That is allowed for us to store. We could not ask if they have a disability or such like things like that. And then afterwards, we send out messages asking, would you like to participate in an online user test? So that works. We also work together with companies that specialize in accessibility and often have a group of people. And sometimes that is better, because then you might get the kind of users that are experts on their technical equipment. So they know, okay, the problem that we see now is because of us delivering a service, is not because of the technical equipment. So it's a bit tricky. So that it depends. We do different things.
And Pilar, what do you think? How can a company or organization who would like to carry out user testing, how could they find you or the users? How can we kind of make the connection between organizations who want to perform user test and the actual users? How do we find them? Oh, I think you're muted still.
Okay, thank you. Well, this in the testing of the user, I find it across the audience. Xavier tell me about the project INTUX, and my coordinator Alicia is telling me if I participate in the project in Madrid with 13 user, and I'm say yes, and I very excited for the new experience in user testing, and I like to test for different products in Madrid University, and I would like in the future continue it for the other projects with the University of Madrid, and I'm very excited for in the future for participate in the news project with INTUX.
So I think what you're saying is that it's the disabled persons organization going via the organization, and then you can find the members. But I know also that from several of the workshops that we have had with end users that we have now lists of people who say, we would really like to do this. So at least in Latvia, Slovenia, and Spain, there is now kind of a test panel showing up. So Yeva, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I would like to add that definitely this is a one good opportunity to collaborate with the disabled person organization. But here is really important to let them understand what this actually means. Yeah, well, we saw also from our project that the organization said, okay, but first of all, we would like to understand in details, yeah, what does it mean and how it works. And then they're able also to explain to the people, to the persons with a disability, how they will be involved and what does it mean. Well, we also find out that the case that the person was really scared, yeah, really scared of this process. Yeah, so it's important to explain everything, our process. Yeah.
You cannot say it too many times that we are not testing you, we are testing the object. It's good if you find from that, you have to repeat that like 1,000 times. I know. Yeah, it's really true. So we have a question here. I'm trying to raise awareness of digital accessibility in the software bootcamp educational field. I'm completed this path, and DA was completely, digital accessibility was completely overlooked. I am in discussions with my educator, and I'm trying to find a whole, quote unquote, approach for this to be introduced seriously into the curriculum and business model. I don't know if there was a question there, but maybe somebody wants to elaborate a little bit on how to kind of make things seriously. Maybe Radek has a quick and dirty solution for that from the Athena project, because I know that's what you're working with.
Not sure whether I have such a solution now, but what usually work here is to start with raising awareness through some empathy exercises to really motivate people. And we are back again in our at users, that in case that UX designers or other staff see what accessibility really brings and how it could change the quality of life of people with disabilities, then they are usually much more motivated to start with accessibility or universal design or with all these topics. So that's what works for us, or in our case, very good, and it's very appreciated also by our, let's say, customers from business sector.
Thank you. And John Hicks is the most polite person I know in the world. He's now raising his hand. What would you like to say?
Well, I just wanted to add on to that. You know, this is a very interesting thing, the bootcamp ideas. The schools I was talking about are sort of almost based on that, actually. And you need to do these exercises. You know, you have these projects and these things where you sort of like, okay, here's the end of the course, we're doing a project. Now you need to include some kind of obstacles in those projects. Like, for example, okay, you're going to present your project. Now, where's your VPAT? You didn't do a VPAT. Oh, I'm afraid you're disqualified from presenting. That is the kind of thing that sticks with people. Or, you know, oh, you've made a new streaming program. Stevie Wonder wants to invest in your program. Can you send him the copy? And of course, it's accessible because Stevie Wonder is blind, as we know. You know, these kind of little thought experiments could really go a long way to wake people up, because in the bootcamp, you're basically there to get enough information to go out and do some contract work, maybe the next week on some new thing you're just learning. It would be great, I think, if the accessibility was included, and you can include it in this way, which makes it kind of fun, you know, and more. It's not like a chore; it's more like an opportunity. That's what I think.
Yeah, and I like the idea of kind of adding accessibility on top of whatever you're doing. It's just an extra challenge instead of having also, first we have all the cool things and then we have the accessibility part, which is always the kind of only for the, you know, people who are really interested. So that's a very good idea.
Yeah, to make it part of the thing, to make it like, okay, look, this is, again, back to holism. Like, if you want to make an integrated, holistic project, you don't forget this. And here are a couple reasons why. I mean, you know, if you end up getting a job with a major software company and you don't do a VPAT, and then you get excluded from a tender because of that, you know, that's big money. So it's important.
Yeah, and for everyone who is not familiar with that, that is a very American way of for the products and services companies to show it's kind of a declaration of their accessibility. In Europe, we do it slightly different, but it's interesting because it may come with a new legislation. So I need to make sure that we have time to wrap up, but I see that Linda has gone on camera again. So I wanted to ask you if you wanted to add something on how we can reach the users that we talked about before, if there's something we can do to support organizations who would like to find users to do usability testing. If you had something very short you wanted to add.
I don't think I can add something very valuable to this. Just what I can say from my side as a person with disability. We need to inform people about people like us. I mean, the people with different kind of disabilities, because it's not like society don't care. They just don't know about us.
Yeah, true.
That I think is very, very important. Just from time to time, remind them that it's. For example, now I wasn't off camera. I thought I am on camera because I can't see am I on or off the camera. And when you just when I was looking very, very close, then I find out that I was off camera all the time. So basically, if we can bring to society bigger awareness about the person's needs, different kind of needs. If we can explain why we need this or that, then maybe people will be more like open to do things more accessible way.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will now give the floor to Eva to wrap up. We are slightly late, but we just, I think we can do the thank yous quickly, then we will let everyone go on with their accessible afternoon. So please.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Susanna. So the two last slides. First of all, thank you to everybody, to speakers, to panelists, to participants, and accessibility service providers, supporter team. I hope everybody gets something from this seminar, at least one thought, yeah, something new, something to think about, something to discover. And let's go to the last slide, please, Susanna. So as we already mentioned, the feedback, it always makes sense. And in this case, we also ask for the feedback. So please evaluate our event. There is just 3 or 4 questions, and this will give us more information. And hopefully we will be able also to organize next events, next seminar in most appropriate way. So as you see, here is a QR code, and there is also the link. I hope the link already is also in the chat part. So please evaluate our seminar. And that's all. That's our last slide. So thank you again. Yeah. And there is a Pilar raised the hand. Maybe Pilar would like to say something in the end.
Yeah,
or
we
no?
really need to wrap up because it's already over 3.
So
I
thank you to everybody. Thank you, Susanna, for hosting this event. Thank you, all participants. It was really a big pleasure to see all of you here. So big audience, and hopefully this will help to all of us make the environment more accessible and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Everyone who has registered will get the link to the recording as soon as we have made it public on the project website. Don't forget to read all the deliverables from start to end and do everything that we recommend. And please go out, enjoy the sun if you are somewhere where it's sunny, and don't forget to involve users in everything you do. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.